Good.
So, Olly, 40 years of SPV. How many years are you in the label?
23 years.
23.
23. But when I worked at a company called CMM, Wolfgang Rod, I started there as a trainee in 91. And I was there 10 years. We worked all the Steamhammer releases and did the promotion in Germany. Judas Priest, Motorhead, Dio, Saxon, Lynyrd Skynyrd, everything. So I was very close with SPV and Steamhammer. And then in 2001, Manfred Schütz, the owner of SPV, wanted to have his own promotion department. So I took 3 guys from CMM with me to SPV, and also the late Mirko Martin, who died unfortunately in 2017. Yeah, and I started as an A&R and product manager there, and my first bands were Magnum, Rage, and Ingrid Malmsteen. So it was a very good start in 2001.
Mm-hmm. So let's start from the beginning. Do you know why Manfred Schütz started this record label?
Yes. Before SPV, he was owner of a record shop called Boots Records, also Musicland. He owned these shops, but with Boots, he was also starting to do distribution for Roadrunner. And then he decided in '84 to do a real distribution company, and this is why SPV started. And SPV was the distributor of Roadrunner, Music for Nations, everything, but also for Noise Records. And he was very close with Karl Walterbach, the owner of Noise Records. And Manfred saw that metal was very good at this time and sells a lot. So he started his own metal label, Steamhammer, which was his favorite band at that time, the British blues band Steamhammer. And immediately it started. Destruction, Sodom, Iron Angel, Assassin. Then he did license deals with Brian Slagel for Metal Blade, Trouble, Les Rocket, Leatherwolf. Also the first Metal Church record was on Steamhammer. So it started very quickly.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned the relationship with Karl Walterbach, you told me that the relationship between these two men was really good back then. Is it true that they were somehow dividing the best bands, the best German bands of the time? For example, Steamhammer had Sodom and Destruction, and Noise had Creator and Tankard. Did they do that kind of separation between the bands? You take this and I'll take that.
I know what you mean, but I think they didn't do it on purpose. I think it was mainly because perhaps the advances or the managers at that time who decided, okay, I go to Noise, I go to Steamhammer. So, but they didn't do it on purpose.
Mm-hmm. But this friendly competition between Steamhammer and Noise created 2 very big European labels, metal labels, that started almost everything. Almost all the European bands, at least, were in these 2 labels. That's it. Is that so?
At that time, definitely. But after that, some other labels arise. Central Media were there, even Napalm, Nuclear Blast. So it was a good time. But yes, at that time, '84, Steamhammer and Noise were the only bands, yes. Only labels, sorry.
Yeah, the only labels. Did you somehow interfere with the sound of your bands, especially in the beginning of your careers? Not by telling them that you should play this kind of music, but guiding them to which is the let's say, the trend of heavy metal, which I remember Sodom saying, for example, that their first albums, the labels did not want their first albums and send them back in the studio to write the album once again.
Not really true, but the sound of the albums were not really good. But you have to remember, at these times, there were artist contracts. That means the label paid for everything. The studio, the artwork, the photos, and the bands get a monthly fee from the label. Yeah. And this is why the label also have a lot to say what should be released and how should it sound. But when in 2001 there were mostly license deals, that means that the bands deliver everything and we have to release it. You know, so this was the kind of difference. Sometimes I would wish that we have artist contracts again. so
that you can control them.
Yep, you have to have a bit more control. But in '84, yes, the labels, I mean, like, you know, the stories about Noise Records that perhaps the Rage album, Secrets in a Weird World, should have a different cover, and then Karl Walter Bach decided to use another one, but without telling the band, you know, these kind of stuff. So it happened.
How important was the distribution aspect of SPV for the label?
Very important, very, very important, because then we had also the possibility to distribute all the albums not only in Germany, but also Europe, USA, worldwide. Yeah? So we have partners worldwide, so the albums were available everywhere. And this was a big, big advantage at that time. Because there were no digital platforms, it was only physical, so the albums, cassettes at that time,
Yeah.
and sometimes CDs, they had to be there in the shops. So it was and the good thing was also that we had the big labels like Roadrunner Noise, Music for Nations in our roster. That was an advantage. I mean, we distributed Master of Puppets, Metallica in Germany at that time. So it was huge,
Yeah.
No, it was important, and now it's important too. I mean, we are distributing now also a lot of labels, like Napalm is now distributed through SPV. We have the Orchard, Membran, and all these things. So yes, distribution is very important. But nowadays, physical and digital.
How were the difficult 90s for a label like SPV? How did you survive?
To be honest, the 90s for Steamhammer were awesome. Because at that time, a guy called Rainer Hensel did his own label called CVH Records. Rainer Hensel was a big promoter, live promoter, touring partner here in Germany. And Manfred and him did together a joint venture. So that meant that bands like Motorhead, Dio, Saxon, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Molly Hatchet, Paul Rogers released their albums through Steamhammer SPV. And that was great. That was awesome. I mean, to have Motorhead on your label. The next thing was that Judas Priest signed with Steamhammer. It was a Ripper era, but to be honest, Jugulator was great. Then we had Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes live at the Greek. So on, so on, so on. So to be honest, the 90s were really good to us.
However, in the zeros, although you were one of the strongest labels, there came the insolvency. Can you tell us the details behind it?
Sure not. But I can tell you, yeah, beginning of the 2000s was also fantastic for Steamhammer. We had Whitesnake, Alice Cooper, Halloween, Creator, Gamma Ray, Eisters, name it. We had the label, we had the band. This insolvency thing was only a thing with something Manfred did behind all the stuff, but he wanted to keep the company growing, existing, but he chose the wrong partners. And yeah, then we can go further. So there was this insolvency, but it was 15 years ago. It was 15 years ago. Tell me where these 15 years gone. It's unbelievable. But we had a very, very great insolvency administrator. He had a Motorhead skull on his arm, tattooed. So he was a big fan of all the bands. And yeah, in 2012, 3 years after this, we were out of this insolvency, which was good. And we could start new, and all the great bands like Magnum, Axel Repel, Sodom, Freedom Call, they stayed with us no matter what, and yeah, luckily we're still here.
Yeah, it exists, yeah. Although it was very difficult at that time.
Believe me, these 3 years from 2009 to 2012, it was hell. Yeah, not hell, but we worked a lot.
Yeah, close to hell, the closest.
We did overtime, weekend, everything. But like I said, I mean, we're a big family here, and we wanted to get the whole thing, continuing, and it's dedication, and yeah, and it paid off. So that's a good thing.
Which is the model of the contemporary Steamhammer company? The model of work, the work model.
The work model is we and my colleague Björn von Oettingen, he was also at CMM at this time, and after Mirko died, he joined the family. It's also 7 years ago now. Tell me where these 7 years have gone. Like I said, we sign bands, we do contracts, product management, we do the printing, we do advertising, promotion coordination. Like I said, we both do everything here, from signing the band to the first release, which takes sometimes 6 to 8 months. But yes, and the good thing is, even after I'm now 33 years in the business, it's not getting boring, because every day there's something new. Yeah. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Yeah, but definitely not boring.
Definitely not boring.
I can assure myself.
Yeah. I can tell you.
What is the proudest moment for you in Steamhammer?
The proudest moment was, for me, in 2008, I was working the Motorhead Motorizer album, and I could give the band a gold record for the DVD Bone Shaker. It was over 25,000 copies in Germany, so you have a gold DVD disc, and I could present this to the band, to Lemmy, to Mickey and Phil, at the Citadelle in Berlin, where they played. So that was a very proud moment, to be honest.
Yeah. Which is the band that you wish you had in your label, excluding bands like Iron Maiden or Metallica?
2012. We were invited from a band to London, Hammersmith Odeon. They played a show there and they wanted to meet us. It was the Cult. And like Electric and Sonic Temple are one of the best hard rock albums for me of all time. So it was a great moment to see the band live at a sold-out Hammersmith Odeon and to meet the band afterwards. I knew Billy Duffy from his previous bands he had with Mike Peters from The Alarm, but I never met Ian Esterbury. To be honest, it was a great meeting. perhaps a little bit too arty. So they haven't speaking about the music, but how the album cover should look like. But hey, but in the end, they decided to join another label, so which was really sad. But the Cult was one of the bands I really would like to have.
Fantastic. Do you know the top Steamhammer SPV titles in terms of sales without telling me the numbers? The most
Sales-wise,
commercially successful.
Sure. That's Jimmy Page and the Black Rose, Live at the Greek, which is an awesome album. Judas Priest, Jugulator, Whitesnake, Good to Be Bad, Alice Cooper, Long Came a Spider, Motorhead, Motorizer, Sodom, Agent Orange, and Axel Rudi Pell, The Ballads from 1993. Unfucking believable. So, yeah.
Axel Rudi Pell, The Ballads.
Yep, from 93. One of the most sold albums in his catalog.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes
that was a surprise, yeah.
Definitely. Sometimes you wonder, you know. But I mean, yeah. And if you have looked his video for the song Hallelujah, I think it's now 20 million streams views on YouTube. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Okay. Which are the advantages of being in a label now that producing a record and excuse me, what are the advantages of being in a label now than producing a record and doing it as DIY? Is it easier? Why is it better to have a record label than produce it yourself through social media that now that you can do all the work yourself?
Sure.
What can a label offer more?
Yep, I understand your question. So many bands asking us about this. And then we have to say, okay, but you have to pre-finance everything. The printing, the pressing, the photo shoot, everything you have to pre-finance. Yeah? And if you do everything by yourself, how do you get to Amazon, to EMP, to all the other mail order companies? You know, it's not so easy anymore. And they don't take everything, you know. So the advantage with the label is that we have the knowledge, the expertise, we have the connections, you know, to make a record successful. We don't give 100% sure that it will happen, yeah, because there's so many factors. It's also like, is a band touring? Is it a hobby band? You know, do they have a merchandise deal, a publishing deal? Do they have a booker? You know, all these kinds of stuff. You know, are there? What about their social media actions? Facebook, okay, it's old, but Instagram, TikTok, you know, all these kind of things, you know, has to work together to make a thing successful nowadays.
Yeah. What annoys you most in the music business nowadays and wish it changed or it was like in the past? Many things. The digital.
To be honest, I mean, with this digital sales and shows or platforms, I mean, you have to put the releases in Excel lists, in some other special lists. You are only, it's a bureaucracy, you know? And it's not, the creativity is gone a little bit, you know, because it's only playlists, lists. You have to fill out this, you have to fill out this. If this is not right, you have to do it again, you know, these kind of stuff, you know. So on the other side, to be honest, everybody's talking about Spotify, but it is so easy, you know, to get to listen to new music, you know. And if you have enough streams, you earn, you know. But it's a long way to be there.
Yeah, it's a long way. Which are the albums that you expected to sell very well and they didn't?
Sure. That's That's a very, very good answer. I think it's running wild, the last album, Blood on Blood, because the reviews were great, everything happened, it was good, but sometimes, you know, the album before that, Rapid Foray, wow, it sold really good. And so I thought Blood on Blood, because it was nearly the same, but I expected more.
Any other album that you remember?
The other album. That's a good question. That's a good question. To be honest.
Okay. Which is the Steamhammer's relation to Greece distribution-wise, and which is your experience from the Greek sales, the Greek audience?
I mean, in former times, it was great. I mean, we did promo tours to Athens. I was there with Halloween. I was there with Kai Hansen. It was fantastic, you know. But within the last years, also because of the economy and all the things, what happened, you know, the distribution was not really good. But now we have a new distributor called Rock'n'Roller, and they, I think they're doing a great job. And we had Rock Hard, Metal Hammer. There's so many websites. So the community, the metal community, is still there.
And now the fun part of this. I will tell you some bands that were under contract with Steamhammer, and you tell me the first thoughts that come to your mind.
Good.
Okay, let's start with Judas Priest.
Fantastic. Was a dream come true, to be honest. I did the promo tour for the Jugulator album, Demolition album, but the best thing was because my son is disabled, and at that time there was only one doctor in the world who could do the surgery. It was in Baltimore, Towson. So I lived there for 1 year, and the first show Judas Priest did with Ripper was in Washington at the 930 Club in '97. So I was invited there, and I drove from Baltimore to Washington, and to see the first gig was really something special. And by the way, he nailed it. Yeah. So he was a great singer. Still is with KK.
Yeah. Sodom.
Sodom. When in 2001, when I started as SPV, the first thing I had to do was to create a platinum plaque for the band, for the Popcom in 2001, because at that time Sodom sold over 1 million records. And Manfred Schiss wanted to award the band with this. So this was my first thing I have to do with the creating company and everything. And then we awarded the band at the Popcom with these plaques. So that was really good. That was fun.
Destruction.
Destruction. To be honest,
you haven't worked with them because they were before. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no relation to them, to be honest.
Yeah. Manowar.
Manowar. We did what was the label called? Magic Circle label. We did Rhapsody, we did all the stuff, but we did also the Manowar Gods of War album. Gods of War album.
Yeah.
And to be honest, half a year before the release of the Gods of War album, Joey DeMaio did a pre-listening session here, where we sit now in the Peppermint Studio. And Manfred, me, and some other people at that time went to the studio, and then Joey said, "This is the best album ever seen." And then we heard the album, and I knew exactly. Everybody was like, okay. But then Manfred said, "Oh, it's a great album, huh? Okay, let's go to dinner."
You know,
So that's it.
you know what Manfred told me right after the release of Manowar album, around before the insolvency. He told me, I don't want to say the first things, but he told me Manowar delivered us an album full of spoken words and bad weather. that were his exact words about Gods of War. They delivered us an album full of spoken words and bad weather and storms and stuff like that.
To be honest, we were so disappointed. I mean, to be honest, they had everything in their hands if they have done the right album, you know? I mean, Manowar did albums like Into Glory Ride, Sign of the Hammer. Hey, these are milestones, yeah? But sometimes you don't know what's in his mind.
Yeah.
I mean, Joey, so.
Whitesnake.
Oh, David Coverdale, great. David Coverdale was a gentleman. But he knew, he always said, "Ollie, I ain't no cheap." So that means best hotels, best food, whatever. But on the other side, he delivered. So we had interview days, we had photo days. He always did interviews fantastic. You know, he worked hard. Good to Be Bad was a great album, to be honest. Yeah, everything was fine. But at that time, he did the tour with Alice Cooper, and his voice was not in shape. And especially in Hanover, our hometown, he was really bad. And then people started to throwing cups, you know, on stage. Oh, he was furious. So, and then I met him backstage and said, "Thanks for your hometown." So no, but all in all, David was great. So David Coverdale, a real gentleman, and yeah, fantastic.
Ingrid Malmsteen?
Good one. 2002, we invited him to the Popcom in Cologne, and we did 4 days of interviews in Cologne at the Popcom. In the hotel, his wife ordered only non-alcoholic beer. So we started, everything's cool. Then it was very boring for her, so she went out shopping. Immediately when she went out, Ingrid told me, "Bring real beer, bring real beer." So then I go to the thing and then get real beer, and then you pour the non-alcoholic beer away and fill the real beer in the bottle. So that was cool. I mean, he's perhaps strange, but to be honest, in 2002 he was great. So he did all the interviews. It was fun, and I think the album at that time, Attack, was a really good one.
With Blackmore's Night. Now that we've taken the guitar players.
Okay.
The pitcher, the Cooper.
In 2003, I was responsible for the Ghost of a Rose album, and we had a promo week at the castle. So the castle was rented, journalists were flown in, everything. So real 9 yards. Everything was there. But Richie decided to do the interviews after midnight. The journalists were really pissed, you know. And so the first interview started at midnight and the last one at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know. It was, people were really pissed. And then mornings, he always ordered breakfast. The bread has to be crispy, but not that crispy. The eggs has to be soft, but not that, you know, everything you can imagine. But then after 2 days, we had barbecue outside. Then he came with his acoustic guitar and played Temple of the King. And he was smiling at me. So, I mean, yeah, it's Richie Blackmore. On the other side, for me, Rainbow was always more important than Deep Purple. And I think Down to Earth or Difficult to Cure, or he created so many milestones, you know, but it's weird to work with him.
Who decided to do this Castle interviews?
We as a record label, so
Okay.
we had to find a good environment so that he feels happy, because he likes castles and all the stuff, you know, and so we decided, okay, this is a castle, and there we do the interviews.
Okay. What about Halloween?
Halloween, yeah, Halloween. It's a funny story. In 1984, Manfred Schütz and Karl Weiterbach did concerts in Hanover. The venue is called Leinedomizil, and it was 5 days. So every day 2 metal bands are playing there. And one day it was Mania from Hamburg as a headliner, and the support act was Halloween in '84. So, and to be honest, they were great. They were awesome. So, but yes, Halloween. We did the Keeper of the Seven Keys Legacy, which was a real new start for the band. You know, after they left Nuclear Blast, after Dark Ride, and it was a great album. It was a great tour. Remember, it was a tour with Gamma Ray, and Axis, Hellish Nights or Hellish, I don't know.
Yeah.
So everything
But it was
together.
Hellish. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we did the Gambling album, and yeah, then we had the Insolvency, and from then on, the band decided to go to somewhere else, other label. And what I found a little bit sad is they did this big book for their 30th anniversary, and they neglected Steamhammer SPV. But to be honest, if the Keeper of the Seven Keys, the Legacy album, didn't happen and went so well, I don't know if everything had to or would continue. So, but hey, it's long gone.
You have worked with Saxon for many years.
Yes, yep, 10 years. Yeah, Saxon is one of my favorite bands. I saw them in 1981 when they supported Judas Priest here in Hanover, and from then on, I was a big, huge fan. Power and the Glory is one of the best albums, or one of my top 5 albums. And it was a pleasure working with Biff. I mean, Biff is a gentleman, an English gentleman, sometimes a little bit stubborn, a little bit harsh, but on the other side, he exactly knows what he wants. And you have to look at Saxon now. I mean, playing with Judas Priest, doing the tour with Uriah Heep in the States. Saxon is big. Saxon is, yeah. And it was great. On the other side, the albums were not really extraordinary. I mean, I think Lionheart was a great album. But on the other side, it was a pleasure working with them, definitely. And I was a little fanboy.
Yeah. It's like being a fanboy, working with the bands that you're a fan of. That's what gives you strength to carry on. I mean, working with bands that you have grown up with,
yeah,
it's a huge thing. Yeah, and the same, I guess, with Motorhead.
Motorhead, I was a little bit more distanced because mostly other people at Steamhammer work with them. I really worked with them in 2008 on the Motorizer album, where I did the product management and everything. So this is the time where I met Lemmy a little bit more often, which was always fun. And like I said, I could awarded them with a gold record. But I think, I mean, Motorhead was special, and yes, everything is true. what was said, but I was so astonished. I mean, you can say about this band what you want. As soon as the band were on stage, it was magic. To be honest, unbelievable. One of the best live bands. They always delivered.
Yeah. The next one is Sepultura. You signed Sepultura in a very difficult period for them.
To be honest, that was my colleague Maria at that time. I had nothing to do with Sepultura. You know, there was no connections and nothing. And to be honest,
Monster Magnet. Monster Magnet.
Same. Maria did it. It was not my thing.
Angra.
Angra was good. I mean, at that time, band without Andre was okay, but I worked very close with Andre when he did his solo albums, promo tour and everything, and it was so sad to hear that he died. And I think to this day I have no clue what happened, why he died.
I think it's heart problems.
Okay. But he was such a nice guy and an extraordinary singer. And the Angels Cry album and the Holy Land album, great albums. So.
Yeah, we did in Greece a very intimate, free of charge acoustic show with Andre Matos and his guitar player.
Yeah.
And because I had seen a dream one night while you were having a listening session with Moonspell, I think it was in Denmark for the Scorpion Flower album, and I saw in my dream that it was Andre Matos playing the song Lisbon with Fernando Ribeiro, and we arranged that together with SPV, and we did a promo tour for Moonspell and Andre Matos, and we had them play a live show and singing My Dream Come True. That's exactly My Dream Come True. They sang.
Cool. Okay, I didn't know that. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I think there's even a YouTube video for that.
I have to check out.
So cool. The next one is Iced Earth.
Cool. Also, Maria did most of the stuff, but sure, I met her a lot of times. I mean, The Glorious Burden was a great album, definitely, but at that time, we already knew how he ticks political-wise. But on the other side, Ripper was a great singer, definitely, but he didn't fit really in the Iced Earth, you know, shape. So Matt Barlow was definitely better. But I mean, it's his own fault. He ruined his career with the things he did, and to be honest, nobody gives a damn about ISIS anymore.
Yeah. That's it. And Typo Negative.
And he always wanted to be like the next Iron Maiden. He always wanted more. He was not happy with anything, you know, and sometimes he was a real miserable person.
What about Typo Negative?
Also Maria, I only met Pete Steele once in Hamburg. That was at the docks after the show. The show was about 2 songs, and then he collapsed. So that was not a really good thing. I met him, and I mean, his handshake was very weak. You know, when you have this big guy in front of you, but I was never a big Typo fan. So.
What about Magnum? It's a band that you have worked for many albums, and it's a sad thing that
over 20 years. What I can say, pleasure. It's gentlemen's. They know how to deliver It was always fun working with them, except when I have to say to Tony Clarkin how the new system works now with all the social platforms, digital sales, or whatever. I told him this, and then he says, I don't care, but thanks. You know, but on the other side, it was this year it was poor. I mean, it was a Sunday, and I got a phone call from Max, who was a tour manager, and to be honest, I immediately knew something was wrong because he never called me on a Sunday. So it was sad, to be honest. It's sad.
And Doro?
Doro, yeah, we did 2 albums, Calling the Wild and Fight, and we did a DVD, 25 years, where we also could award Doro with a gold plaque. I remember when I did the promo tour with her, we had a signing session at the Headbangers Ballroom in Hamburg. It was located at the water at that time.
I know exactly.
The old one. Okay. The whole signing session took over 4 hours. Everyone who was there brought some presents to her. She spoke to everybody. It was like, oh God, 4 hours. But on the other side, she did it. Every fan who was there got their photo and autograph. And to be honest, she's still doing that. It's unbelievable. One of the nicest persons, and she knows exactly how to treat their fans.
Yeah, I've heard only the best words about Doro, and it might not be very popular in Greece, but I know how huge she is in Germany, and
Yes,
I've heard only but the best.
Definitely, she's such a nice person, and she really lives her dream still, which is amazing. And to be honest, I mean, the Hellbound album from Warlock from '85, I think it's also a fantastic album. So, but hey, yep, great person.
What about Virgin Steel?
David Diffie. Okay. I mean, he released classics, you know, the first albums in a row, classics, especially Noble Savage. He tries to break out a little bit out of his comfort zone with the last albums, which, to be honest, were not a real success.
Yeah.
To say it mildly. But I hope that with the next album, it would be better. What we do now is re-release the first 2 albums, CD with bonus tracks, vinyl, and everything. This comes out end of August, and it's a real treat for the fans. You know, it's value for money.
Sticking to Virgin Steel before the last one, how do he delivers you the last 2 or 3 albums? What do you say? To be honest, with the last
ears,
to my ears, there's a big disappointment.
Yeah. To be honest, with the last album, I had to hear it more often to tell them we can't release it. Yeah. It's a harsh thing, definitely, but some things has to be different, which I will not do with the next album. Yeah, but on the other side, we have a license contract, and this is what I mean when we started the interview with artist contract and license contracts. You know, so.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, David is a great person. He has a dedication. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And, you know, nice person, always great to talk to him. But I mean, let's see what he comes up with the next album.
Let's see if he can turn the table. He's the person he's the kind of person that you want to hug as soon as you see him. He's a very nice guy. He's a very nice guy.
Great guy, definitely.
And the last one, Axel Rudy Pearl.
Yeah, Axel. I knew, or I know Axel from 1993 when I did promotion for the Ballads album when I was at CMM, and I'm his product manager, A&R, or whatever you call it, for 23 years. It's like it's a friendship, but it's like an old couple, you know. There were some harsh words, some nice words, but in the end, everything works, and yeah, and it's always a pleasure to work with him. So, and I think with the new album, with Ensemble, he did one of his best albums for me, and he's so consistent, you know, with his songwriting, with his songs, with his tours, everything, and yeah, it's a pleasure to work with him.
Fantastic. Olly, thank you very much for your time.
It was a pleasure for me. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate that. As I've been a fan of Steamhammer and buying the releases since I was a kid,
Yeah,
and
true.
working,
I mean,
and especially working with you for something like 20 years.
this is what I want to say. We know each other, God, for a long time.
Yeah, more than 20 years. It's more than 20 years.
But on the other side, when you see, like in Spain, Italy, or whatever, they are always, you know, the same guys like 20 years ago. You know, there's not so many new kids coming. Same here in Germany with the magazines and everything. You know, like Der Forever Götz Kühnemund, or you know, there's so many people who are still there, and it's great. You know, that we can work together for such a long time, and you are still there. It's great.
Yeah, and the thing is that, as you mentioned before, this thing with music keeps us young and fresh and wanting more. So this is why we continue doing that.
Correct. It gets not boring. You know, even if you go day by day to your office or to your work, something new appears, something different. You know, and you can learn every day, and this is a good thing.
Thank you very much, Olly.